All right. Hello and welcome to Backstage with Gig Performer. My name is Brett Pontecorvo. If you are watching right now, make sure you've said hello. We've already got some regular attenders. We've got Gig Performer team member Nemanja here saying hello. Of course, we've got Jeff Wheeler, which, by the way, if you haven't checked out Jeff Wheeler's Gig Performer in Action article, make sure you take a moment to do that. I'll make sure we link in the description after the stream so you can check out some of the cool stuff he is doing with Gig Performer. I'm really excited because Gig Performer 4.5 is coming out very soon. So if you are subscribed to our newsletter, you probably heard yesterday that it'll actually be coming out on May 29th. I believe that's right. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's on the newsletter. And so if you're excited about it, let us know in the comments. Be like, hey, I'm excited. If you're excited about a specific thing, let us know that as well. Now, next week, we are going to be doing a live Q&A about Gig Performer 4.5. So you will have some ample time to play with some of the newer features, try some things out. During the stream itself, I'm actually going to walk through them, just kind of give a little demo of each new thing that's been added, some things that we haven't talked about yet, some of the Chord Pro features we haven't touched upon, some audio features, just some little things that haven't been done yet on the live stream or covered on YouTube or elsewhere we'll be covering. And then you'll also have the opportunity to ask your own questions and let us know what's going on about Gig Performer 4.5 if you've been enjoying it. But today, we are actually going to be talking about some of the things, 10 of the things specifically, that we don't talk about as much, certainly on Backstage with Gig Performer or elsewhere, that I think help to make Gig Performer special. Some of the nice little extra touches that exist within Gig Performer. If you get value out of these week after week, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button so that more people can find Gig Performer easily and really supercharge their live performance. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to jump over here to the Gig Performer screen. And what you'll notice is right now I have up just a built-in template, actually. So this is one of Gig Performer's templates. It's a guitar template. It's pretty easy to find. I can't remember which one this is called, but the first awesome Gig Performer feature that we don't talk about often is the MIDI Out Block. So this is a guitar template, but Gig Performer doesn't discriminate, right? Even if you're using mostly audio, Gig Performer will allow you to send MIDI out to other places if you so desire. And so that's what we're going to start with today. Our first awesome feature that Gig Performer has is the MIDI Out Block. So if we flip over to the back, I'm just going to hit Command P. This is a bit of actually, I think the zoom here is a little bit funky. Let me make sure that you can see my whole screen. Yeah, okay. Here we go. By the way, this is we'll call this number 11. If you hold down Command on a Mac and you use your scroll bar on your mouse, you can zoom in and out on your blocks so you can really see what's going on. But I'm going to bring in a MIDI out block here. And you'll see there are a couple of different options that I have to choose from. I'm going to send it to my IAC driver because I actually don't use any external gear, right? Everything I like to keep pretty in the computer. So I just drop it in and I'm sending it to my IAC driver. Now, when I open this window up, it gives me this kind of cool little dialog box here that gives us the ability to do some things. So first of all, in a world where you're perhaps recording an external synthesizer, you're playing, right? Like, let's imagine this. You're sitting behind a MIDI keyboard, right? And you're using this MIDI out block to actually play a synthesizer, a hardware synth. Well, you can use Gig Performer to set the ranges of that synthesizer so you can use it within a larger design. Like perhaps you have one soft synth and you have one sampled instrument and you have one actual hardware instrument and you're splitting them across the key. Gig Performer makes it really easy to do that with this keyboard split. Now, the other thing you can do is you can change the MIDI channel. So sometimes that's important depending on what your hardware is expecting. But I'm going to demo something here that I think is just kind of neat. So other MIDI messages to send. So basically, Gig Performer will send this message out to wherever your MIDI out block is set up to go to when this rack space is activated. So if I hit edit, the MIDI helper tool is going to pop up and I can choose add new MIDI event. And right now this is empty, but we're going to fill it in here. So we've got MIDI out, right? Select an output target. Well, that's our MIDI out block. Now we have all of these different things to choose from: note on, note off, control change, program change, all this good stuff. So if you're wanting to send something, chances are it's here, but I am going to send a control change message. Oops, I clicked the wrong one. I'm going to send a random one. Let's see here. 26. I'm going to send a CC value of 127. And the reason I'm doing that is because if you send a value of 0, it doesn't actually do anything, right? It's like, well, it does. It's an off message, but we want it to be an on message. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to map this to a scene in Ableton. Now, if you were watching last week, then you will know that you can also do this using OSC messages. And there are some distinct benefits of using OSC over using this method. But you know what? OSC is not necessarily the easiest thing for everybody to figure out. So if you're looking for something you understand, well, here it is. We'll link to last week's episode as well. I'm going to actually pull this to my other screen briefly because I need to make sure you guys can see actually what's going on. So this is Ableton Live, and I'm entering MIDI mapping mode, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose send now in order to map this to a given scene. So let's say I'm going to map it to scene 6. I'm going to pull this over and I'm going to choose send now. Okay, now do we see up in that corner there that message is sent? So now Ableton knows that this clip is going to be controlled by this control message. So I'm going to exit out of MIDI mode here. And now what we'll do is we'll test it. So I'm going to click to this scene. And if I choose send now, have a look at that. It works. So final test would be when I move to it, does it work? So pop it back up here, and when I move, boom, fires the clip. So this is all possible using that MIDI out block. That's kind of a cool thing, right? So you can use Gig Performer with your other programs. And I know sometimes the Gig Performer team tries to like define what is Gig Performer. And one of the things that we talk about is, you know, it is a command center, right? Like it controls lots of different elements. And that's valuable because it takes your hardware synthesizers, it takes your software synthesizers, your other programs, and brings them all into one place. So you can create one setup with many different things. And that's really powerful. So, okay, that's our first one. MIDI out block. That's our first awesome Gig Performer feature that gets looked. It gets overlooked. We'll work on it. But hey, before we move on to number 2, we've got Patrick Lee saying being able to record outputs natively, making it easy to capture your ideas or performance for later editing and reference. Patrick, I'm excited about this. I think output recording is awesome. So we're on the same page. By the way, Nemanja just wrote in here, you can record mono and stereo on inputs and outputs, and it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter if it's actually a stereo pair, right? Any adjacent channels can be turned into a stereo pair, which I think is kind of a nice touch. Okay. We also have, we've got all these comments coming in about Gig Performer 4.5. Let's see here. I'm a solo performer, and I hope to use Gig Performer for running my backing tracks, soft synths, and guitar, as well as click track. Yes, it will absolutely manage this without breaking a sweat. And if you haven't joined our forum yet, that's a great place to go to get support for making that transition really easy. So happy to have you on board. You can probably use MIDI to control lights. Yes, you can. And if we have any church performers who are watching today, you can also use it to control Pro Presenter, which is a nice feature. All right, let's get back into it here. Number 2 is filtering MIDI inputs. And this is just it should be obvious, right? Like this should be an obvious feature in any program, but it's not. It gets left out. So what I want to show you here is I've got a couple things on the screen. Now the first is a MIDI monitor, and if you don't know what that is, it's monitoring the MIDI. Gig Performer actually has more than one MIDI monitor. So this is like a plugin block version. So if you hit Command P, that's your quick insert a plugin thing, and you start typing MIDI monitor, you'll see that there is a utility that you can monitor the MIDI in a particular path. Okay, so that's what I have set up here. But there's also a MIDI monitor. Let's see here. Window. Where is my MIDI monitor? I'll tell you what. Is it Command M? You bet it is. Global MIDI monitor. And I know these are Mac shortcuts, but I think it's also Control M will bring it up as well. And that's just going to monitor any MIDI that is happening. Now, Gig Performer in this particular rack space is using a MIDI in block that is tied to my keylab. I really like this keyboard. It's great. Now, we've talked about the MIDI in block before, but not as much in depth. So there's some things that it can do that we haven't talked about doing before. And so we're going to talk about doing that now. So let's see here. Okay, so we've got our transpose and all of that good stuff. But what I want to focus on is this event blocking situation. What this does is it says, hey, you have to stop here. And this can be really helpful if, for example, you're playing more than one sound at a time and you don't want a particular thing to pass through to a particular sound. So what you can do is you can filter things out. So we've got our MIDI monitor, and this MIDI monitor is saying, hey, I'm going to tell you everything that's passing from this block to contact. Okay. So right now, if I press my sustain pedal, you will see that CC64 is passing through 127 when it's down and 0 when it's up. Now, if I don't want that to happen, perhaps you're playing an organ patch and a piano patch. Your organ is set to respond to your pedal and make the Leslie turn faster. Well, you don't want that, right? Check this out. If I check this sustain box, I can press the pedal and nothing is happening. That's not the most visual thing here, actually, for you to see. Okay, so here are notes. If for some reason I wanted to filter out those notes, I could say, hey, no note on messages may pass. And now you can see this key is lighting up when I hit the key on my keyboard, but it is not passing a note on message through. So event blocking. And actually, many episodes ago, we had special guest Simon Leaner come on, and he said his number one tip for keyboard players would be that you have basically everything filtered out except for note on, note off, and foot pedal. And I agree with him. So kudos to you, Simon, for sharing that. We'll make sure we link that episode below as well. Okay, we got a question coming in from Glenn. What is Sysex indices? I'm going to do my best to define that. Sysex is a type of message that synthesizers can send back and forth. And if you want to see them, you toggle it on. And if you don't want to see them, you toggle it off. And if you don't know what it is really, then you probably don't have to worry about it because probably nothing that you have is sending that type of message. So that's my quick definition of it. I actually don't work with Sysex very much. I think David's controller, his big foot controller, sends Sysex messages. Could be wrong about that, but pretty sure. Okay, filter MIDI inputs. Now, this next one, I'm pretty excited about. I'll admit, actually, the first time I used Gig Performer, I was confused by this feature. But I think it's a feature that actually makes sense. Now, when you bring in your rack spaces, on the left-hand side, you see these numbers. Now, if you were like me, the first time you opened Gig Performer, you probably thought, well, there's the first rack space. There's the second rack space. There's the third rack space. And you're not wrong, but actually what those are program change messages. And you can access these rack spaces on the fly very quickly by sending program changes into Gig Performer. So let me see here. I'm going to show my keyboard. Did that work? Okay, how about it? But we don't need to see the on-screen keyboard. Let's see. Well, this is fine. Okay, you can see right over here, I have this Akai Mini This is a great keyboard. I use it for traveling. I actually use it a lot for music notation, believe it or not, because it's pretty easy to manipulate. But these pads, when this red light is on here, send program change messages. So if I want to access my first rack space, I just have to hit that button and I can just scroll through my rack spaces. If you've done no mapping, you open Gig Performer, you made a couple of rack spaces. If your controller sends program change messages, you can switch. That's pretty awesome, isn't it? So this is built in, it's by default. I think it's overlooked just in terms of how powerful it really can be to just use Gig Performer simply in the rack space version. So by default, every single rack space is responding to program change messages, and you can do the same with variations. If you had a reason to do that, you could assign a permanent program change number and it would do the same. Now, by the way, we are going today through 10 features of Gig Performer that I think get overlooked, that I think are really great. But if I'm moving too quickly, or if you have any questions about anything that I have done, just stop and be like, hey, can you explain what you're talking about? And I would be happy to do that. So make sure you are popping those questions in the chat if you have any. All right, we are going to keep on moving here. So when you make a rack space, you often want widgets. And we talked maybe 2 weeks ago or 1 week ago about the rig manager, which makes switching controllers very fast and easy. But we haven't ever talked much about designing rack spaces, although Gig Performer community member Eric Schutz, Shamas, did a wonderful episode with us where he did touch on designing panels. So I'm actually going to drop in 4 metal knobs here. Now, in some world, maybe I have a knob here and a knob here, and maybe I have 2 more or whatever. By design, I am not great at making things look pretty. It's not my natural tendency. But Gig Performer has some tools to help you make it easy. So if I select more than one widget, you'll see I have these options here. Gig Performer will move things for me to make them line up. So in this case, perhaps I want to center things vertically. Well, I can click this little button here and they will be centered vertically. Now, perhaps I want to do the same thing here. Okay, I'll center these vertically. Well, that's great, except now these top ones don't line up and the bottom ones don't line up. So if I select this way and I hit the keyboard shortcut T or align top, those will line up. If I do the same thing this way, those will line up. Well, now all of a sudden, I've got something that looks pretty good. I didn't have to do a ton of work to make it that way. Now, one other thing that I think is really cool is if you want all of your knobs to be the same size, like perhaps maybe you want these in a row here. Maybe you want them, something like this. You kind of get them close, but you're going to need them smaller for some reason. If I resize one and select that one first, that part's very important, and I hit the equal sign, well, now they're all the same. So if I come in here now and I center them horizontally, well, now it's going to bring all of these widgets down to line up with the first one. Pretty cool, right? So now I can actually distribute these horizontally as well because maybe I want them to look a little bit better. I can use my arrow keys to move them. And if I hit shift, I can actually move them by quite a bit more. So Gig Performer makes it easy to design panels. And this is really helpful for me. Now, this is probably the most useful if you are going to be looking at your panels. I know David uses Lemur to control things via OSC message, and so the way panels look matter less to him. But this is a preset template, and when you look at this, it's kind of exciting, right? You're like, oh, I can kind of see what I'm doing. So sometimes making it look nice actually is good. It's a nice thing to be able to do. All right, let's see. We got a question coming in here from Glenn. Let's see what Glenn has to say. I've been trying to read this one while I'm talking, but I haven't been that successful. With 4 cores on my PC, can a second instance of Gig Performer take advantage of that? One on one core, the second on GP4, can you create a delay on input delay on output. Nemanja is in the chat right now, and perhaps he will be able to speak to this a little bit. I think cores get a little confusing depending on how you're running things. So yeah, maybe he'll type in here and give you a more accurate response. But I think second instances can, in many cases, lighten your load. I was actually chatting with Thaddeus, who was with us here last week, and he was saying that there are certain plugins that he does run on a second instance because they're designed in a way that is very resource intensive. And so running them just kind of standalone on their own is hard on the computer. So he uses a second instance of Gig Performer, and it seems to really help his live set. So perhaps that answers your question a bit, Glenn, but maybe Nemanja will be able to shine some light on that. Okay, so this next one I am pretty excited about. I think, though, you can't see my screen. So let's get that back up. All right, here we are. So I'm going to flip over to the wiring view. And, oh yeah, okay. Multi-instance support is covered on the blog, and you can visit the linked community thread and ask this question for tech responses. Thanks, Nemanja. I really appreciate that. Okay, so all I have set up here, I'm going to actually change this quick. Here's bonus number 12. I'm going to replace this with a MIDI in block that is specific to my keyboard. And the reason I'm actually doing that is because I did send some messages to Ableton, and I don't want to create a MIDI loop. So this is just safety for me. Don't want to make sure that I'm not messing up my audio for you guys so you can hear clearly. So this is Pigments, and you've probably seen me use Pigments on the show before because I really like the synthesizer. But whoa, didn't mean to make that so large. I think there's a way to resize this. I know that I've said this before on stream. Okay, I'm going to bring this down to 50% so that we can see more than one thing at a time. And let's see here. We'll start with this song. So okay, so we got a sound, right? But one of the things that we haven't talked about a ton is the probabilistic sound designer, and it's a bit hidden. So I want to show you where it is, and I want to show you how you can use it to create interesting sounds, and actually why it's better than just a random sound designer, which can sometimes give you sounds that you can't hear or make things that just don't really work. So at the top, there's a triple dot situation going on. And if you scroll down, you'll see there is a probabilistic sound designer. So if I open that up, you'll see I get this box here. And what this is going to do is it's going to learn parameters inside your VST instrument. So capture parameters is on. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to start, giving knobs a little bit of a click so that the probabilistic sound designer knows what things to probabilistically randomize. Say that one 10 times fast. Okay. So I'm going to go in here. Let's see here. We'll do wavetable position because that could probably be interesting. Let's see if we can change. Let's see. Here's some LFOs. Maybe we'll change the speed of LFO3. That could be interesting. All right. Well, that's a decent amount of options here. So I'm going to turn capture parameters off because now I don't really want to have an issue where I'm accidentally capturing parameters. So if I open this filter to cutoff, it's going to give me the ability to set a range. Now, this is particularly useful because imagine your randomizer randomly filters your cutoff filter to 0. Well, now there could be a perfectly good sound going on there, but you wouldn't hear it because the filter is too low. So you can set ranges. So I'm going to pull this bottom up here because we don't want it to go too low. And perhaps we don't really want it all the way open either. So we're saying, hey, Gig Performer, you can randomly adjust this particular parameter between these two ranges. Okay, cool. So we'll exit out of that box for now. All right. This is the comb filter. I think this one matters a little bit less. So let's do this. Let's play with one of these. So we could do kind of an arcing curve like that. We can also come in here and there's this exponential XY designer. So if you wanted to perhaps have a sine version here, you could come in and really make this be whatever you want it to be. Okay. So now we've got this nice sine curve, and we will say this is good. There we go. So now we've got our key track, and we can do that. Okay, so let's say we'll do wavetable position. This can actually stay as it is. And then for LFO3 frequency, we kind of want it to stay on the higher side of things. Okay, so when I click randomize, well, first, interesting. There's my sound as it is right now. I'm going to click randomize. Well, now all of those parameters moved. Completely different sound. Randomize again. Okay, completely random, different sound. That's kind of like a bass. Very interesting. So you could get crazy with this. You could do whatever it is that makes a ton of sense for you. Dave says the pigment sound is a bit too low to hear. You know, I'm not surprised about that. It is, it's a bass sound. Hopefully you're able to kind of catch that it is changing a lot. Let me see if I can turn the volume up. It's definitely louder over here. I'll randomize a couple more times. Interesting. That one I can't hear. You end up coming up with things you probably wouldn't design. So I think this is kind of a neat feature. So if you're trying to come up with a sound, you need some instant inspiration. You know, there's our ability. I'm hearing no sound. Don't think it's routed to the stream. It is. All right. That's okay. Hopefully you can kind of see the things moving. We do have a fuller video on this, but that is the way that it's going. All we hear is you tapping. Okay. So probabilistic sound designer. The next thing I want to show you guys is the plugin manager. When I open this up, you can see Gig Performer has a list of all of the plugins that are installed on your computer. And this can be powerful for quite a few reasons. First of all, there may be plugins that you don't actually use anymore. So you don't want things showing up in your Gig Performer search or in your thing that you have to sort through that you're never actually going to use. If you prefer a particular type of plugin, you prefer VST or you prefer audio unit or you prefer whatever it is, you can turn off all of the ones that you don't want. So if you went into format, you could come in through here and turn off all of your audio units if that is the thing that you wanted to do. This is also really nice because you can rescan for plugins. So if you install something while Gig Performer is open, you want to do a rescan for it, you can just click that scan button and Gig Performer will go through and look for anything that is new. New feature for Gig Performer 4.5 will actually be the ability to export the list of your plugins out of Gig Performer into a file. You can use it to organize your stuff or just see what you have, check for updates on things. So that is nice. Oh, you know, the other thing that's nice about this that I never thought about that David mentioned the other day is it also tells you the version of your stuff. So like if David noticed my contact was it wasn't the latest release because he was able to see in the plugin manager that it wasn't the one that he was using. So there's our plugin manager. That is pretty cool. And I actually don't think we've ever talked about this before on the stream. So interesting thing going on there. Okay. I also want to talk about, well, there are a couple of things here. Yeah, let's come back to this one. We have not talked about the channel constrainer yet. So the MIDI channel constrainer is made by Gig Performer, and it allows you to do remapping of MIDI channels, I guess is the best way to talk about it. I'm going to find it the other way. So I'm going to start Command P. I'm going to type constrainer. So I'm going to just click this here, and you'll see it brings in this little circle. And if I double click on it, I get some options. It went to my other screen here. So let me pull it back over. So this says set the input channel that is allowed through. All the other channels are muted. So you could block all MIDI traffic, though I'm not sure why you would want to do that. But if you check use a different output channel, you can say, hey, everything that's coming in is now going to be on channel 6, for example. And you'll see this is like a 1 to 6, right? A little thing there. So let's go ahead and show how this works. So I'm going to drag this here and this here. So we'll pop open our MIDI monitor. Okay, and you'll see these things are coming in on channel 6. And if I bypass this, whoa, now they're coming in on channel 1. Hey, out of curiosity, do you guys hear that piano? Just wondering. Okay, so with that bypassed, it's on channel 1. And without it bypassed, it is on channel 6. Now, this could be particularly useful if you are using a MIDI controller that is sending different channels. Okay, that's interesting. So maybe my audio is not running the way that I thought it is. You don't need to hear it. Just being able to see that is sufficient. So we've got our 1 going to 6 here. You could use whatever it is. I'm actually just going to quickly check and make sure my audio is set to. Yeah, it is. Okay. It's fine. All right. So this is the way that we can remap our audio. And this could also be useful if you wanted to send your stuff to an external keyboard that needed to respond on a particular channel, or if you wanted to use one MIDI in block and split it a couple of different ways. Lucas Rushida, I'm probably saying his name wrong, but he's a wonderful piano player, amazing composer, also a Gig Performer user, made a video for us where he actually does use the MIDI channel constrainer quite a bit. And so if you want to know more about that, you can check out that video. We'll make sure that it is linked in the description as well. Okay, let's talk about Setlist View, friends. I don't spend enough time here. So if you have a set list and you're making your songs, you'll know this is really powerful because it allows you to organize your rack spaces into song order. And perhaps you have a lot of songs, right? Like if you're playing in a cover band, you could have who knows how many songs. And Gig Performer makes it really, really easy. So, okay, I have a short set list here. And you'll see underneath set list, there is the all songs set list. So this means that if in this gig file I have created a song, it will be in this list. But perhaps I'm going on a gig and I'm not doing all 7 of these songs. I'm going to create a new set list here. And I'm going to just call it today. Okay. And now you'll see I have no songs in this set list. And that's because this is a new set list. If I hit Command Shift F, it's going to bring up this dialog box that says add songs to set list. If you haven't seen this feature before, now's probably the moment where you're going, I get it. This is awesome. So you can use your keys to scroll up and down here. You can also filter by string too. So like, you see the circle of life is there. I don't have to type I can type in circle, which is very nice. So I can go through here and I can select by hitting enter which song I want to add, and it doesn't exit the window. So I can go through all of these tunes, and when I'm done, I hit escape, and now my set list is built. That is fast. That is so fast. So if you're building a set list for a specific show from an all song set list, you can do this in no time at all, which I think is really helpful, profound, simple. It's like we come back to it every week. Gig Performer is a simple program, and that is precisely the reason why it is so powerful. They make doing the important things really easy. And so then when you go to perform, you're thinking about your performance and you are not having to think about all of the tech. Very nice. Very cool. Okay. Let's see here. Quickly add songs to Setlist. We have one more. We have one more that we're going to do. And oh no, we have two more. Two more. Okay, so this is number 10, but it's actually number 9 because I want to show you, change the order midstream as you do. Okay. Yes, we will talk about this. I wonder if I can demo it right now. I'm not actually sure which version I'm using. Let's see here. Song parts. Song part properties. Yeah, okay. So this is one of the things that works. So do you want to apply these program change values to those set lists as well? Yes. So if you change it in one place, Gig Performer is going to give you the option to have it change every place. So that's how it works. Thanks for asking that question, Michael. Nemya just wrote in, Lucas is great. We also have a blog article. I didn't know that. About the MIDI channel constrainer and his linked video. A couple of use cases are covered there. Yeah, it can be really helpful depending on how you are building your stuff. And everybody does it a little bit differently. Okay, so let's pop back over here. Now, this particular template is built using a global rack space and a local rack space. So when I pop over to, the wiring view, some of this stuff is stuff I added. Let's see. Okay. So like this is the default. This is what it looks like, I believe, if you just load the template. There's a from global rack space and a to global rack space, and that is it. So a lot of stuff is done in here, and there's some comment blocks here. So if you want to see what certain blocks do and why they do them, you can click in. But what I want to talk about is actually that you can access global features locally. So if, for example, you needed to control a particular thing from the local rack space so that as soon as you load your rack space, your global settings are correct, Gig Performer allows you to do that. So I'm going to toggle over here to my global, and I'm going to enter edit mode. So any of these widgets that I click on are going to have this option under advanced. So probably when you click on it the first time, it will say general. But if you go over here to advanced, you will see that there are all of these different parameters that are available to you. And these are global parameters, and they're designed to make it really easy for you to find these global things from the local rack space. So if I choose parameter 13, this number 2 is now linked to this parameter 13. Okay. Okay, let's pop back over. So I'm going to enter edit mode. By the way, so Nemanja just wrote in, there's a blog that will be published. Let me actually pop out of here. This blog article is insane. It is so good. Very in-depth, very thorough. So make sure that you check that out when it's published, because he goes over everything in so much detail. So you'll definitely get the full rundown once that's up. Okay. So I'm bringing in my button here because maybe for this particular thing, I want to have this button. So underneath these from global rack spaces, I now have a list of everything that I have assigned to that advanced feature. I can't even remember what it's called now, but we can tab it back over in a second here. So now I'm able to access that particular parameter from this widget by using the global rack space block. So if I hit edit here, you will see pressing lane 2 now activates or deactivates this particular playing lane. Now, this is really helpful because if you want something to start as soon as the rack space loads, now you have the ability to do that and you don't have to have it in your local rack space. Okay, so Gig Performer also has some startup options. So I'm going to exit Gig Performer. It feels a little bit counterintuitive to do midstream, but that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to quit it. I have to leave Ableton open. Okay, so I'm going to open Gig Performer, and I'm going to hold down Shift on my keyboard. And it gives me temporary startup options. So if for some reason you don't want a gig file to be loaded, now I actually have this turned off by default, but maybe you're having some sort of an issue, you're troubleshooting something, you don't want Gig Performer to open the last file you were working on, and that's actually how you have it set up. You can toggle this off by starting Gig Performer and holding Shift. If you just added a ton of new plugins and you don't want Gig Performer to see that, then you can have that toggled off as well. I actually just got a message from David who wants to join us. So I am going to send him the invitation link. Okay. So these are our temporary startup options. You don't have to run your GP scripts automatically. This gives you the ability to really decide exactly what is going to happen. Michael just wrote in, if this does what I think it does, thank you, thank you, thank you. I use Band Helper to trigger songs in Gig Performer. Yeah, awesome. David, do you want to pop on? Okay, let me pull on David here. I think, let's see. How's it going, David?
Hey, I'm sorry I couldn't get here earlier. I got tied up. Greetings, everyone.
Yes.
How's it going?
It's going good. Hey, David is here now. So if any of those features that we went over, you have questions and you want to talk to one of the men who built the features, feel free to ask them. I'm actually, David, while I have you here, I'm going to go top to bottom. I'm going to say all of the ones that we covered. Maybe it'll trigger some other thoughts on people's heads. So MIDI Out Block, not often covered feature on our channel. So we're able to send MIDI out of Gig Performer easily.
Well, we've always been able to send MIDI out.
Oh yeah, but we haven't talked about it on YouTube enough. These are the ones I feel like didn't get enough attention.
Okay. Yeah, if you have external hardware synthesizers or modules, you can use the MIDI out to control those. Sure.
Yep. Or even programs on your computer, right? If you're using an IAC driver, if you're on a Mac or whatever.
Sure. Or with Windows using the virtual MIDI connection. Absolutely.
Yep. We have the ability with the MIDI in block to filter events. So if you don't want your plugins to respond to certain things, you can cut those off right at the source. Gig Performer also by default. A lot of these features have been in Gig Performer, but
yes, I'm sorry, I'm confused. I thought we were talking about new stuff.
No. So we're talking about things that I feel like we've overlooked.
Yes,
we're just
lots of them. Sure. Yeah. Okay, now I'm excited.
Yeah, great, fantastic. By default, rack spaces have a program change number. So if your controller sends program changes, you can directly access a rack space with no mapping at all, just by hitting your program change on your controller, which I think is very cool. AJ just wrote in. Hey, AJ, good to see you. Fraza was using the new recording feature in 4.0. Oh, was he? Was Fraza recording?
Yeah.
He was. There you go. David just got back from tour. David, do we have any videos of your tour yet?
Actually, AJ has been doing the videos, so all I have seen are a few iPhone things from people in the audiences.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
David was actually doing some cool OSC stuff, which we talked about last week with Thaddeus.
Yes, I had to use Ableton Live for the first time in my life.
There you go.
At the last minute, which
there you go.
Do we want me to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. Why not? You're here.
Oh, yeah. So basically, what happened was the band with which I was touring, a security project, wanted to do a song called "Digging in the Dirt," which is a recent, one of the more recent Peter Gabriel songs, and they put together some loops for percussion, which I had to trigger. And I wanted to trigger it all from Gig Performer. So the idea was to run Ableton Live with the clips loaded, and then trigger them from Gig Performer. And the easy way to do that using a Max for Live device, and Thaddeus helped me set that up because I wasn't familiar with the live object model. And the idea was I could have certain keys on my keyboard that would basically, using GP script, would just send an OSC message, the appropriate one, to Ableton Live to trigger the clip. And then I routed the audio from Ableton Live back into Gig Performer using Black Hole, so that I could control the volume and other kinds of things directly from Gig Performer. So basically, Ableton Live is behaving as a slave. I could trigger it, but I get everything back, and I still, Gig Performer is still, I shouldn't call it a slave anymore.
They've changed it to leader and follower in Ableton.
Leader and follower, yes. Yeah. So Gig Performer is basically in control, and Ableton Live just follows.
Yep. Which is cool. I mean, it's just another example of how Gig Performer can act as sort of the instrument to pull all of your things together.
Yes.
Okay. We also covered the widget spacing tools. I'm sure that's not the exact word, but you can use Gig Performer to easily make all of your stuff line up vertically or horizontally. So if you're not great with design by nature, Gig Performer has built-in tools to help you do that. We talked about the probabilistic sound designer. David, this was your idea, right? This was your...
Yeah. Still one of my favorite features, and it's very it's almost unknown.
Yeah. Can you use it with external gear? I feel like you told me you could.
Yes. Somebody wrote, I forget who, somebody wrote a scriptlet.
Mm-hmm.
And they basically, excuse me, with a bunch of parameters. So it just looks like any other plugin. So you can trigger them. You can the probabilistic sound designer can learn them, and then it sends out the appropriate CC messages to an external synth for the various parameters of the external synth. So you could do the same kinds of controlled randomization. Yeah, somebody wrote a script to do that.
It's so good. It's so good. I love it. Okay. We talked about the plugin manager, which in 4.5, you can now export that data if you so desire. So you can easily see all of that. Temporary startup options, which I feel like is also a hidden feature. Maybe it's not hidden, but I think it gets overlooked. We have the MIDI channel constrainer for easy remapping of your MIDI channels, quickly adding songs to setlist, and using local widgets to control global parameters. David, what is the shortcut? There's a shortcut, like a paste shortcut, where if you paste something from the global rack space to the local rack space.
Yeah, if you hold the shift key down. I think Nemanja has documented all those things. Yeah, there's a lot of those hidden things.
Yes.
So basically, the idea is you can have a widget in a local rack space that controls a widget in the global rack space.
Yes.
So, and the way that basically works is the global rack space, those widgets look like parameters of a plugin. So, right, that was actually Neboj's idea. It's a very, very clever idea. And so basically, if you've got widgets in the global rack space that control other plugins or whatever they control, you can control those widgets from a local rack space by mapping through the to global plugin. All the global widgets can be exposed, and then you can just map them. And we thought it would be very useful to have a convenient shortcut so that if you copied a global widget to a local widget, you'd get a widget that was automatically mapped to that global widget so it could control it. And
is it shift paste?
Yes.
Okay. I couldn't remember it. I was trying to get it to work before the stream and I couldn't. So if you hold down shift when you hit paste, okay. But the one caveat being there must be a from global rack space block in the local rack space for that to work.
In 4.5, we inserted automatically.
So nice. Okay. There you go.
Yeah. In the new version, I don't remember when I did that, but it used to be you'd have to go and insert one, and at probably some point I got fed up with that. Said, you know what? we could just put it in automatically.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, because there has to be a plugin for you to map your widget.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
I think now in the new version anyway, it gets that happens automatically if it's needed.
Awesome. All right, friends. Those are our 10 overlooked features. Thank you guys so much for watching. I think we don't have any other questions, so I would say you got about 10 seconds before before I pop us off here. But next week we're going to be back. Nemanja is going to be with me for sure. And we're going to be answering any questions you have about Gig Performer 4.5, and we're going to be going over some of our favorite things that we haven't covered yet that's been included in Gig Performer 4.5. So make sure you're back with us next Thursday, same time, 11:30. Oh, Glenn's got one more question. Gig Performer 4, can you create delay on input, delay on output?
I don't understand what that means.
He was talking about multiple instances earlier. I don't know what that means either.
A delay of what?
I don't. Right. Glenn, let us know delay of what. In the meantime, do you know what this means? Is any option like alias?
I don't. Elise, I assume he's talking about Elise's. I don't know what that means either. I mean, Elise is another company. They make great synths, keyboards.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what that question means. Can you delay audio? Yeah, put a delay plugin. Lots of delay plugins out there, and why do you want to delay it?
Yeah, that's the question I'm wondering too. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, David, but I feel like you've gone very much out of your way to make it feel like there is no delay.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, I don't know what he means by delay. I mean, is he talking about an echo, so you get
I think
the delay only?
Glenn, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's he said keyboard trouble here. Thanks, guys. I think the way he was talking about it, it almost sounded like he wanted delay compensation.
Yeah, no, I don't know what that means in a real-time program. When I hit a key, I want the sound to come out. This is not a DAW where you want to compensate for different plugins and everything gets laid out in tracks.
Yes,
this is a real-time. Play now, get it now.
Yes, although there was some discussion in the forum about like virtual players, like virtual bass players or whatever. Like, can you use them in real time? Well, you can visit the discussion on the forum.
Glenn, if you're watching, or you're obviously watching, post your question on the community forums. Probably better than doing that here.
All right, friends, it's always awesome to be with you. We didn't get any other. Paul didn't write us in, right?
I don't know. Like I'm just looking through the pastes in the top chat.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. What is Sysex indices? Yeah, a lot of these are better. They'll be described in the documentation. But I can answer that one quickly if it wasn't answered already.
I gave a half answer, but go for it.
Did you? Well, so basically, if you want to do Sysex manipulation, typically what happens with a real-time Sysex message, you'll have a message to control some real-time parameter, typically of an external synth, and 1, 2, or 3 of the bytes in that Sysex message will change, representing, say, the position of the slider, and the others stay still. And so if you're going to write a GP script or scriptlet or something to generate the Sysex message, you need to know which values will change in your array of bytes. And so displaying the Sysex indices just lets you see quickly, oh, it's bytes 5, 6, and 7 are the ones that I need to adjust on the fly. So it's just a convenient tool to help you figure out which bytes in the array need to change.
Yep. Paul wrote in a question that's very fast to answer, and then we'll wrap here. So Paul, so easy. If you have let's say,
well, okay, so he's talking about aliases.
Well, is that what is he talking about? Okay, hold on.
Yeah, I think
see. Okay.
I
So
think he's
variations are the answer to aliases, right? Is that the
well, yeah, kind of. We don't have the same restriction because when you use the thing as an alias, you're very restricted in what you're able to do. But if you're basically wanting to use the same plugins with different values, then our variations are kind of a generalized version of that alias mechanism where you can have an arbitrary number of widgets controlling an arbitrary number of parameters of multiple plugins in a rack space, and you do it that way. So basically, the variation concept.
and also if it's like one keyboard sound that you're using in 10 different songs, the global rack space, right?
Yeah, well, you can put stuff in the global rack space, and then it's just there all the time.
Yep.
That-
So yeah, it's Paul, I'll tell you this. Using Gig Performer having come from Mainstage, I assume most likely what you will find is that Gig Performer can carry a much heavier load much more easily. And I also assume that the things that you're missing in terms of aliasing, when you start to think the way Gig Performer thinks, as opposed to trying to translate things, from the main stage
Yes.
language to the Gig Performer language, a lot of those things are going to go
Yes.
away because you're going to be thinking in a different fashion.
Yeah, there is a paradigm shift in Gig Performer that requires a little bit of thinking, the approach that we use. Some of the things that are in other applications, and I think we saw this a lot when people tried to reproduce stuff in Gig Performer that they did with the old, what was it called? Forte,
Mhm.
the Forte.
Mhm.
And it's a very different paradigm. For example, if you want to do multiple splits, people don't think about the concept. Just throw in multiple MIDI in blocks, with each one set to a different thing, and off you go. You've got splits, layers, overlaps, and everything. It's
Mhm.
just a different approach
Mhm. Mhm.
to it, and it takes a little bit of getting used to. But yeah, obviously, we think it's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I use Mainstage too.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's why we ended up building our own. No comment. What can I
Right.
say?
Right. Well, and I'll say this too, Paul. There's a lot of great resources. So if you are new, right, you're brand new to Gig Performer and you're trying to get your hands on it, we have the Build It series on YouTube. We have the Foundation series on YouTube, which are live streams, and then the blogs and articles written by Nemanja and David and Naboja are awesome. And then the community forum is also super supportive. So we can have you up and running in no time, Paul. The resources are there. They're easy for you to access. And if you have questions, the forum is very active. So feel free to ask there. Dave said he had to make the same paradigm shift, but it's well worth doing so as G does things more logically. From the mouth of Dave. There you go.
I think the visual routing is much clearer than a channel strip model, because you don't have to start thinking about, I need this extra bus. Wait, I have to do a send, or I have to make an aux. I have to connect this here. You just visually wire this to this. You want the equivalent of a send, just wire this to this, and you've got it.
Mhm.
So you don't have to have a PhD in mix engineering. I mean,
Exactly. Exactly.
basically,
Yeah. Right.
you
I
want to
mean,
be a musician, not a mix engineer.
right. Right. And more with like the increase of technology, musicians are being asked to have both the skills of a musician at an extremely high level and the skills of mix engineering and sound designing and all of that stuff. So this does make it much simpler. Paul, I think because the question is so broad, it would be hard for me to show you. But do reach out in the forums because
Yeah,
somebody will be able
use
to
the
help.
community forums. I mean, people are doing, variations are a very standard
Mhm.
concept
Mhm,
in
mhm, mhm.
Git
Yeah,
performance.
and very easy. Well, if you even the manual entry on variations is very clear and easy to read. Actually, the whole manual is clear and easy to read. There's not a lot of fancy language. There's enough backlinking to kind of find what you need to find, but nothing in there is like complicated for the sake of being complicated. It's all meant to get you doing the thing quickly. So hats off to Nemanja for that as well. All right, friends. Next Thursday, same time, we'll be answering all of your Gig Performer 4.5 questions. And we'll see you then. Thanks for popping on too, David.